Hi everyone, welcome to our Personal Finances PodCat, episode 52. So, everyone perceives money differently, even though the real value of money is the same. I believe a person's perception of money actually came about from their personal experiences. So, can you recall when was the first money experience? Was it a good, positive, or a negative start? So, that's what we're going to talk about today. And together with Roshan, the radio announcer, and he also calls himself a personal finance nerd. So let's get started. Hi, Roshan. Welcome to
Hi,
the
Kat.
show.
Thanks so much for having me. And yes, I do call myself a personal finance nerd because that is what I am. I am a big, big nerd. Most of those books over there, most of those books you'll see are
Can
like
see
money related or some kind of business thing. And as you can see, I like to show them off in the video.
that. That's a good show off. Okay. Yeah. So for the benefit of your audience, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Roshan, self-described personal finance nerd. But beyond that, I'm a radio presenter at the BFM Radio, BFM Media, BFM Media 9.9. Where however you listen to the radio station, it really depends on what medium you use. But I'm with the Morning Run. We do the business, finance, current affairs stuff every morning from 6 to 10. More importantly, I also produce and present the personal finance show Ringgit and Cents, which is like my baby. I love doing that. I've been doing that for now what must be 2.5 years right now, I think, if I've got my math about right, or just a bit, just around there. So that's really been a lot of fun. And besides that, I've always been interested in media. I studied business and finance in Monash. And I started off at BFM as an intern, actually, September 5th, 2017. It's
Wow.
not that long ago, but also feels like a lifetime ago. And it has been quite a ride. So yeah, that's a brief intro, I guess. I'm at Monash. I did Canadian pre-U as well at Taylor's. Um,
Same
yeah,
as
let's
me.
all get let's not go too far behind as well, lah. Huh?
Thanks for the great
My
introduction.
primary
I,
school was this. I went to kindergarten here.
I really don't mind that, but probably like the next episode. All right. So I guess it's also better for our audience to get to know you a bit more on the personal side. So I have five quick fire questions for you.
Ooh,
Get
okay,
get
let's
ready
go.
for that. So the first one, what motivates you in life and work?
Oh, this is going to sound super cliche, but it is personal growth. I always want to, and I know people are rolling their eyes and all of that, but it really
No lah,
is comes down to that. It's like, I mean, I would roll my eyes and think, sorry if I heard it from someone else, but it really is that, right? Because I want to see myself grow. I've always been very ambitious, even when I was younger. And it may not have been in the academic sense, but it was always in things I was good at. I'm like, oh, these are the kinds of things I want to grow at and keeps going at and things like that. And when I start stagnating or when things start looking like there's not much of a trajectory, that's when I start getting a bit jittery and iffy and all of that.
Mhm.
It really is that. I think it would be that. And I mean, underlying all of that, of course, will always be, I guess, a need to prove myself, a need to want to show, I guess, prove people wrong. There's always going to be those kind of underlying motivations. But in terms of like the more positive elements, it would be that desire for growth and movement. Really, that's a bit impatient sometimes, but yeah, not the most quick fire answer. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I was enjoying that. All right, next up. What is your personal definition of financial independence?
Having enough money to do whatever it is I want. Actually, it's so funny you asked. I was just thinking about this week. The concept of retirement. Basically, my retirement fund is a financial freedom fund, right? And I want to accumulate enough wealth in that so that I can do whatever. I don't want to stop working, but I want to be able to do things that I want to do, projects that I want to do, that fulfill me in not purely the monetary sense, but also to give me that sense of freedom that I don't have to be trapped in a certain thing. That, I guess, is financial independence to me. The ability to make decisions independent of the finances and knowing that I'll be okay.
Hmm. Just out of curiosity, like, do you have a set like target age for that, or it's actually a magic number behind this, or
Magic
just like,
number. So
mhm,
I did some math the other day and I have it all. And I think based on my very conservative estimates, I would need like I think 3 million ringgit at like 55 or 60 years old, which is a lot of money. So I'm not entirely confident about that either. But at the same time, I think the number will change, I guess, because that number doesn't take into consideration. With that number comes with a very conservative rate of return during retirement. So I'm like assuming like a 3% rate of return during retirement, which isn't great lah, you know. So that's why it's a bigger lump sum by
Mm-hmm.
the retirement age or financial freedom age.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm that is something, I guess, yeah, it's about the 3 million ringgit mark, but don't take my word for it lah. That number kind of changes over time also as more factors come into play.
Yeah, exactly. I guess everyone would have a different target, and then it also
Also, I'm not
depends
even
what
sure
you
that I
want
can
to do.
get to it lah.
But I'm pretty sure you're working towards that. Mhm. All right.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, how do you save and invest?
How do I save and invest? Kat, do you want like the actual method behind, or do you want to know what I put the money into, or
Um,
everything?
a general like method.
Hmm. So it's automated most of the time, right? So EPF is one, and I do count EPF in the grand scheme of things because it is a method of savings, and I count it as very strong savings because on average EPF is what 5% per annum over the last how many years, and it's capital guaranteed and it gives you a minimum certain amount and all of that. So that's like an investment, but also a savings portion. So that's the conservative side of things, right? I also automate certain. I think it's 10 to 20%. I can't remember the exact math now into my stash away two funds I have there. One is a retirement fund and one is a healthcare fund because I need to plan for healthcare and stuff. So that's a bit more conservative. Then I have the retirement, which is the most aggressive because it's like a 30, 40-year horizon. So it's mostly automated. I also have emergency buffer fund, which is split between fixed deposits, cash in hand or cash in the bank account, not actually in my hands, right? And stash away simple as well. So it's a bit of a diversified thing because even though stash away simple has better returns, it's not PIDM guaranteed. So that gives me a bit of like, I'm a bit paranoid lah, huh? So let's just put it that way.
Mhm. All right. To sum them up, I guess you got the diversification part and also you got the automation part, just so that
Yeah,
you can be disciplined about it.
yeah. So like
Okay.
the EPF is diversified for local and stuff like that, and then Stashaway has that foreign exposure that I also want in my overall portfolio lah. So yeah,
All right. So next up, what's your favorite quote?
yo, this one tough lah. This
I
one is
know,
like,
I know,
what is
I
my favorite
know.
quote? Oh
Mm.
man, I really can't think of anything now. But it's not a quote. But if you see this little orange plaque over here, yeah, come on, Roshan, there we go. Hit over
Uh-huh.
there. That says "Keep moving forward," and that's kind of been like my mantra for many many years.
Mm.
Because a few years ago I fell sick and all of that, so that kept like there was always this at the back of my mind. You got to keep moving forward, and what does keep moving forward mean is relative to the individual. It could mean taking like running at your sprint because you are at that stage, or it could mean just taking one step at a time. But essentially,
Mm.
the on aggregate over the span of your life, you want to just keep moving forward a little bit at a time. And sometimes that means falling back 2 steps, but then taking 3 steps the next day. I know it's a bit philosophical and personal development, but it really did keep me sane for many, many years. And it's also kind of how I generally look at life, right? KMF, keep moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a very beautiful quote. I think everyone should but believe in that because yeah, that's the quote basically keep people moving forward and not give up. Doesn't matter what happened. And also I love the part where you talk about it's not about the speed. There are times where you are way slower by some failures in life, but just keep moving forward. Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So the last one is gonna be extremely random because it's meant to be random.
All right, I'm ready. Let's
So,
go.
all right. So, all right. I'm gonna show not gonna show it here, but I'll just read out the question to you. So, it's two option where you're gonna just pick one, and then not just that, you're gonna tell me why did you pick one after another. So, would you rather wish for number one, happiness and unlimited ice cream, or perfect skin and complexion? happiness and unlimited ice cream, or
Happiness and
perfect
unlimited
skin
ice
and
cream.
complexion?
Oh my god, this is it feels like a trick question because I automatically want to say happiness and unlimited ice cream.
Uh-huh.
Um, but also at the same time, I can be quite vain and conscious about my looks. So great complexion and skin would be awesome as well.
Mm,
Um,
tough choice, right? I picked the best question.
this is so tough, but I'm going to go with. Oh man, I can't choose this. Hold on, I'm going to go with happiness and unlimited ice cream. I'm
Are
sure
you
that people
sure?
who are going to I don't know, because it's always like the like trick question, right? Like, what is that? What does happiness actually mean? Maybe the ice cream is low fat ice cream and tastes horrible, but I'm going to go with happiness and unlimited ice cream because I think we could all use a bit more happiness overall. I'm not sure what the happiness here means, and plus,
The happiness to
I'll
you.
just yeah, I guess I will also just take better care of my skin, lah. I guess
Yeah, 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 yeah.
happiness and unlimited ice cream. Let's go with that.
All right, all right. And do you want to define your happiness? No, everybody like define it differently.
Yeah, I could. My happiness, I guess, is it's a not a convolution. Sorry, it's a complement of, like, I guess, a lot of things we've talked about so far, right? Um, the growth, being able to grow at what I'm doing, but also having that financial freedom, building that fund out. But I guess happiness, it's a very personal thing, right? But I guess it's being able to do something that I love, like that kind of feeling, right? That dealing with a challenge, but having it just challenging enough that you can actually do it and not feel like you're hitting against your head against a wall. I think it's the term is called the flow state. So I guess
Mm.
that would be like happiness to me in a way. And I'm not even sure whether that's a legit answer. I may have just been waffling a little bit there, but I guess yeah.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point, which is like, I think we need to enjoy what we do. Like, yeah, but also adding a bit of like a challenge in there so that it keeps
Mhm.
us motivated and keep us excited to cannot be like too, mundane and, yeah,
And
that can
growing and
happen.
yeah, I think that's important.
Hmm.
And
Right.
stimulated, right? You want to keep your brain engaged and things like that.
Yes, yes, yes. Yep. I can't imagine myself doing every day the same thing. I think same goes to you too.
You could say that, yes.
All right. So let's talk about you've played different roles in throughout your career, right? From producer, from radio broadcaster to content creator right now, and probably from different. Oh, probably there are different things that we don't know about. Could you share with us? Or so, which part of this do you enjoy the most?
Ooh, I enjoy Ring Incense the most for sure. I think it's a show that allows me. So I love the radio broadcasting part, right? The ability to connect with so many people and have this kind of interaction on air with my co-hosts is a lot of fun, and it really stimulates my brain. It's the same reason why I like doing moderation sessions or even interviews like this, right? Because it's a live show. You've got to think on the fly. You've got to really engage with the audience, and I love that. I really do. I used to do quizzes last year, and I think there's a certain performative element to it that I really enjoy. And I think I feel like I'm good at it to a certain extent, which is why I like, it's again like the challenging part, right? Find something that's a bit difficult, but also something you feel that you can accomplish. So that's my favorite part. Ring and Sense is a big part of that. It gives me a lot of value because over the last must be just over 2 years now of presenting the show, producing and presenting almost 3 years, I think. Oh, sorry, producing almost 3 years, presenting 2.5 years thereabouts. Um, I really feel like I've connected with a lot of people, and I get DMs and things like that about people who have said they found value or they didn't understand this, and then now they do, and it makes you there's a warm fuzzy feeling that comes from that, and I really enjoyed that, and it feels like like I'm tangibly helping people build their relationships with money, and that I think is just super valuable, and I really don't know how to really put that directly into words. I love the content creation part. I think the radio broadcasting and the content creation are kind of parallel to each other. So it really is. I enjoyed the expression. I've always enjoyed the element of expression in the work that whatever the work is. I used to be a barista for a little while part time when I was in uni, and I used to like engaging with the customers at the front clubhouse. Yes, they're always going to be they're going to be unpleasant ones, but there are a lot of them are actually just really nice people who want their regular cup of coffee and in an environment where they feel like it's kind of home but not home at the same time. So Kat, that would be my answer. Lah. I love the expression part of the work. So whether it's content creation, I did a clubhouse with Stephen Young from Wealth Foundation, MyPF as well, just a few days ago. That kind of connection and building relationships and all the cliches that come with it. Yes, yeah, that's what I enjoy.
So which part of like all this kind of job, or do they all have a similarity, or that when you are doing those, like you feel like you are yourself at the moment?
Oh, when do I feel most like myself?
Because I'm pretty sure like throughout your career you probably come about different things, or sometimes
Yeah,
like you are just you are asked to do different things, probably due to, I don't know, like this or that
I
reason.
think it's conversations like this, Kat. To be honest, it's
Mm,
the live element, the IG lives that I do, the even the ringgit and cents to a certain extent, but because but aren't we have to remember like anything I do for BFM comes within like a certain BFM standard, right? There's a certain level of of what's the word here? Not an image, but there's a like we're a bit more serious
Professionalism.
on air. Yes,
Mm.
that's the word. Professional. That's the one.
Mhm.
I can't act like a monkey or a buffoon on air, right? I can't make stupid jokes all the time. I try and get away with a few here and there, but there's also a certain level of professionalism that must come with it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a different product altogether, and I
Mhm.
enjoy it all the
Mhm.
same. But if you're asking about when do I feel most like myself, it's conversations like this. It's IG lives I do with the people I love talking to. Surai Sainuddin is a great example. I love having conversations with her. Mr. Money TV, Stephen Yong as well on Clubhouse. That's why I really like Clubhouse, and I feel really bad that I've been neglecting the app recently because work has gotten a bit crazy, and I hope
Mhm.
to get back to it soon enough. But that would be my very long-winded answer after that.
All right, good answer. Right. So, what are the things you have learned from each of this role? Or are they just like keep helping you grow and get better and better, or do they each like make you discovered a different side of you?
Oh, each of them come with their own personal development for sure, 100%.
Mm.
So at
Mm.
BFM, I was a producer, a pure play producer for um, what was it? Must have been 1.5 years, and with that comes a whole. I mean, the first 6 months of producing.
Sorry, wrong
Oh, no,
button.
no, worries. He startled me a little bit. No worries.
Sorry.
See, that comes with producing as well. I totally understand. Like you press the wrong button, live on air, you do the wrong thing. Like it happens, and see, a lot of times producers' work goes unnoticed because you're not on air, you're behind the scenes, you're keeping the clocks run, making the trains run on time, making sure the ads play and the show starts, or even behind the scenes booking the callers, getting the content ready. There's a lot of hard work that goes behind, and producers, they're not the front face of a lot of the work. And the first 6 months of being a producer was some of the most stressful times of my life because I was learning so much, and it felt like so much. I felt like I was drowning. And
Mm.
every week just felt like another week on top of the other. But eventually, I learned the skills that I needed, and eventually became more comfortable with the stresses. I also learned the most powerful thing when I was a producer, especially when you do the paneling, which is the technical part, when you go
Mhm.
live, which is a lot of
Mhm.
buttons and things like that. Checklist. I have one book that is just a checklist every day, the same thing. I write down each thing that I have to do when I copy from the previous page, and I check it off one at a time each time I do it. It's a very tangible way of doing it, and I make sure that I don't forget anything. Because when you're the producer and you forget to, let's say, do a particular thing to the system, the radio that you might not go live. So these are the things that are really, really important. But I also learned to have a thick skin and pitch people shows and emails and dealing with things like that. Lah. It is really like the producing part is just learning to just solve problems. That's what I learned. The
Mm.
presenting part came with a whole different ballgame. So with Ringgit and Sense, I learned a lot more about how to. Actually, Ringgit and Sense was always a very natural thing to me. I was very interested in it. So
Mhm.
the learning part from that was more on the content side. As I grew with it, I grew with the content and the engagement, as I engaging with the guests and things like that. and more mature and all of that. So Ring Sense was more of a content development part of me. Didn't really learn from the personal development part. But being a presenter came with the whole, like what I was talking about earlier, right? It's a live show. You've got to be able to think on the fly. You've got to learn how much is too much talking, how much is too little talking. What is the timing like? When sometimes how you sound on air may not be how you think you sound. That these are the things that I learned on the on the go. And sometimes when you think you're being sarcastic, because people can't see your face, you're just pure audio. People may not pick that up, and so it sounds like you're being
Mm.
snarky or you're just being rude.
Mm.
So these are the things you learn. Also, you learn how to take feedback, and sometimes feedback can be quite rough, especially when people don't know who you are. Like people send in feedback. Oh, this presenter was making a fool of himself, and then we reply back and say, oh, thank you for your feedback, really sorry that you felt this way, we're striving to improve, etc. And then people realize that you're a person, and then they reply and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it that way. So it's really interesting, right, when people
Mm.
look at you as a person as opposed to a personality or just this voice on the radio. But
Mm.
yes, each of them came with their different skill sets, and different learnings, and I'm always learning, right? I think that's really the thing. And sometimes when you're on air, it's just chemistry that you just can't. It's something that you can't really teach. I guess it's really who your co-hosts are. But the
Mm.
learning is non-stop, lah. You just got to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Learn to adapt. Last year was a big year actually because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So a
Mm.
lot of things changed. We had to learn to be agile. So that taught me a lot about just resiliency and learning to, I guess, learning to better wall off certain things mentally to be like, these are the things I can manage, and these are the things I have no control over. So if I have no
Mm.
control over this, I should minimize the stress that comes from that. It's not easier said than done, of course. Till today, I still get very stressed about a lot of these things. But I think acknowledgement of these things is a first step. Kat, I'm not sure whether I actually answered your question. I know I spent a bit of time on the producing part, which I think was a really important defining part of my career. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that is true. Like, I mean, the whole thing that I mean, you're trying to say is that from each of the role, really like you got better, you learn new things, you probably push yourself to the different limits. And I
yeah,
wonder, was there
step by
any
step.
part that you were very uncomfortable at first, but you just forced
Oh,
yourself through it?
when I started producing and paneling and stuff like that, that was tough. That was really tough, because it's a very technical part of the show, and I'm not the most gifted when it comes to technical things. I can talk, I can go on air. In
Technical?
fact, the first
Yep.
time it's very like, because it's very like it's all these different machines and these buttons and a
Ah,
system. So when we go
okay.
live, I have to do the counting. We have half an hour. I have to keep the math in my head. These are the amount of ads we have. The news bulletin is this long. We have this amount of time to do the conversation. Oh, we got to make sure the call patch is true. So it's like you're a train conductor, and you're making sure that all the trains are going on time and the timing is correct and things like that. So I don't do well with that much information. So I always found that very stressful for me. I mean, I got
Mm.
comfortable with it over time. I built systems for myself that worked. The checklist was a lifesaver during that time. Um, Going on air is always felt, and I know this sounds may come off a bit conceited or narcissistic, but it always felt a bit more natural to me. It just felt like I was alive. Like the minute the light goes on, it's like a different side of me comes out, and it's this person who's ready to go, right? And of course, I was scared the first few times I went on air. I was terrified. But the minute it's go time, it's either do or die. And I learned a long time ago that I was going to do and not die.
Hmm.
Oh, too old.
Interesting.
That's so
That
dramatic, Roshan. So dramatic.
but that's what I wanted to hear from you actually, to really about, yeah, each of the things that you learn. And you definitely become a different person right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm not the same person I was 2.5, 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not. I mean, I'm a different in the sense that I've grown a lot for sure. And I've learned a lot about my own flaws and things that I've needed to patch up, or at least recognize that there are things that I can't do, and I need my team to support those things, or I support them in different ways, or learn to lean on my strengths instead. Um, so those are the kinds of things that I guess that it's been quite a journey actually, and I guess I'm still me, but maybe more refined and more mature and a bit more learned, go and stumble, or go and fall enough times, you learn to pick yourself up after each time, and then you kind of, oh, Kat, I know what my favorite quote of all time is. I'm going to bring it up now. Okay, it's
Okay.
from Batman Begins. It's from Batman Begins, and this is when Alfred is speaking to Bruce Wayne,
Mhm.
and he asks Bruce Wayne, "Why do we fall, Bruce?" And its stance is to learn to pick ourselves up. That is my favorite quote of all time. And it's in line with the whole keep moving forward thing. We are going to fall. We're going to make mistakes. Hopefully, not mistakes that destroy us, right? Those are always going to be things. Consequences are real. But if you, in my mind, and maybe this is a bit too naive and too optimistic, I try to think of these mistakes as areas to learn from and kind of gain from, right? Because the mistake has happened. What can I learn from it? What is the productivity I can gain from this? And that may not always apply to everything, but I do believe that there's always something to be learned even in failure. And
Mhm.
that's what I've tried to apply over the last few years as well, over the last actually 10 years or so.
Mhm.
Through my health struggles and during uni and things like that, it was always just learning to pick myself up after a certain failure, whether it was my fault or not. Because sometimes life deals you a hard hand. Sometimes you slap yourself in the face because you've done something stupid. Either one, just learning how to move on from that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that was a good big part about your own self development and investing in yourself. Like when you realize that
Mm,
something that we're not that good enough, like you just keep improving, keep investing, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that part was all about your own self development. But what about like when it comes to investment? So I believe you have
Mm.
you call yourself a personal finance nerd, and so how has your investment methods changed throughout the years, especially like being a producer, from all the things that you pick up, talking to different people? How has that changed?
How has my investing changed? It's become more structured. It's become less haphazard. It's become less lalang, move with the wind and see what happens here. It's become a lot more purposeful, right? And in fact, it's become way less active. The minute I started working, I stopped dabbling in active investment in terms of like buying my own stocks and things like that because I couldn't handle the stress. I couldn't sleep at night. And then when you have work, you want to use your productivity and your willpower for your active income and gain on those levels. So I sold a lot of my stocks, or if not all, when I first started working, and even during my internship, because it was very early mornings. We would wake up and sleep before I would sleep before the U.S. markets opened, and I couldn't monitor my stocks, and that made me very anxious, and that wasn't healthy for me personally. And I used to own Apple stock, so I feel the pain. I sold it many many years ago. I made a lot of money then, but I could have made way more money. But the fact is, um, what would that have cost me emotionally and in terms of my health, in terms of anxiety? Maybe I'm just saying all of this to make myself feel better. And even if it is so, it doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, what is the current situation today and what have I learned from all those mistakes? What I learned was one, I cannot handle the uncertainty that comes with it. I need a plan. I need a purpose. Why am I buying this stock? Why am I investing here? What is the role of EPF in my personal finances? That's what I've learned. Having a strategy and what are the purposes for those particular asset classes, right? So nowadays, I'm mostly a passive investor. I'm leveraging on EPF. I'm using my robo advisor. I have a stock portfolio still, but it's largely a value play. It's very structured. I've built rules around it. So last year when markets fell, I bought particular big tech companies that I really thought were on discounts, and those were meant for that's a value play. I'm buying it because you're not going bankrupt, my friend. This is your giant multi-trillion dollar company that has much B2B business. Okay. So I did that, and that's like a buy and leave. And I also did some growth plays. That stock portfolio will remain there. I'm not going to increase the allocation anymore. What I am doing is I'm actively adding to, of course, EPF because I have to, but also towards my robo advisor, towards the goals. I have two goals for the robo advisor, as I mentioned earlier, which is retirement and healthcare. So I'm adding actively there to grow for the long term. It's become structured. I think about what I'm doing with the money. It's the purpose. Why am I doing this and what is it for? Because if you don't have a purpose, then you get the anxiety. And that's what I felt when A great example, last year I bought Zoom stock at
Mm-hmm.
$111.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I wrote myself this beautiful statement. I was like, I'm buying this because it's going to be a 10x company. It's super growth. This is the pivotal change, structural change and all of that. It went up 30%, and I started panicking because I'm like, oh my god, there's so much money I've made here, 30%, or not even in 3 weeks. This is amazing, and I didn't want to lose that, right? But in my head, I always told myself, you've structured this in a way, a half allocation for growth. You're here to hold it for a few years. But I let the noise get to me and I sold out. Now, I'm not saying it was wrong. I mean, it's gone 4 times now since then.
Mm-hmm.
Why I was disappointed in myself is I didn't listen to my investment strategy. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. You can have the best plan in the world, but when you actually go into the and start acting, you get punched in the face, and suddenly all plans go out the window. So you've got to be you got to understand your own risk tolerances. That's very important. I think that's another thing I've learned over the last few years. So purpose is one, risk tolerance is another, and also the other one is that the need to take risks. But I was always not risk averse in terms of investment. I always kind of took those calculated risks, but having that purpose around the investments made it more steady, right? Like, oh, I'm doing this for retirement. I know the market average is this. I can handle this volatility. Let's go for it. Oh, I'm doing this for 10 years. Okay, I cannot take too much volatility for this. What is the average 10-year life cycle? Not life cycle, but the average 10-year block return. What's the lowest return been for this kind of sector? So that's kind of where I look at it, right? But also just the move to passive has been a big thing for me, because I don't have the time or the energy or mental capacity to manage my own money in that sense. So
Mm-hmm.
I've given myself, but I also know from a behavioral point of view that I'll get itchy and want to buy stocks. So that's why I've given myself a particular ballpark of money that I can use to buy stocks. And if I've used it up, then I've used it up. I can't add more capital there. That's a big no-no.
Mm-hmm.
I've been giving myself like let's say X amount. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's all I can use for that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've learned. Purpose, risk, understanding your risk tolerance and being realistic about it, and understanding, I guess, the whys, and also moving to passive. Those are the few things I've learned over the last few years.
Yeah, yeah. I think the part about really understanding why are you putting the money in and what is the value behind this investment. I
Yes.
think that is very very important because money is just money. Like it's just like it's just like your example, like buying Zoom increase like 3 or 4 times. But what is it that you see in the company that you believe, and then when you put your money in there, like does it align with what you want to do with it? Like or
Hmm.
some people like it's good to have like break your investments into like a midterm or a long term or a short term
Yeah.
investments, then at least you don't panic like throughout the time, the
Another
horizon.
thing I learned was don't rush. And every time you feel like there's a time pressure, I always back off, because when you're under time pressure, more often than not, you don't make good decisions and you rush into something. And this is what scammers use all the time. Scammers always put time pressure on you to stop you from thinking or to get you to act. When there's someone or something putting time pressure on you, back off. That's my personal belief, right? And when I feel there's a time pressure, because most of the bad decisions I made have become under time pressure, and I feel like, oh, I've got to buy it now because this is my one and only time to do it. And no, there will be other opportunities in different asset classes or something like that. You may not be as good, but here's also where you got to learn the other way. Not to lose money is important as well. You don't want to get into something you don't understand. Yes, and that's the other one. Never invest in something you don't understand. Because I've done that. I bought GoPro once upon a time when I thought it was the next big thing, but I didn't really do my research into it. I just thought it was a very powerful brand. I bought it at $40 a share when it fell down from 60, and it fell down to $20. So I lost 50 to 60% on that investment. On the flip side, I also bought Apple and made a lot of money there, but that was based on analysis and kind of like I had been watching Apple for a very long time before I made that decision, and I think that's a very important thing to take a look of. Oh, I will also mention this. I was very stupid when I invested in Apple because I invested almost all my assets into that. It was
Oh.
my almost my entire portfolio was Apple Inc. stock. I was very
Hmm.
lucky. It could have gone, if I had done it with a different company, it could have gone very badly for me. But
Yep.
thankfully for me, the analysis was correct. I could have been lucky. I cannot dispute that, right? I may have just been in luck at that point. But that's when I learned. I look back and I'm like, oh man, concentration risk is a big thing. So that's why you want to diversify your assets. And at the day, you don't want to have too much of your concentration in one asset. That's why I have like, I think it's a 5 to 10% block
Mm,
for
mm,
particular assets.
mm.
Beyond that, it's time to rebalance the portfolio. That's when I understood why we rebalance portfolios and why we diversify, because we don't want anything to be too much concentration risk. You don't want to over diversify for sure, but there is a certain amount of there's a Goldilocks zone, right, where you're doing rebalancing and diversification, and that will always come down to your investment strategy and why purpose. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand there's also another method that is pretty useful, which is like to have a sinking fund of like this capital. Like you just like if you don't have the capital yet, like just save up for the sinking fund. It can be bit by bit. Don't do it a big chunk, just don't just peel one big whole portion of your assets and then just dump it in one company. If you have
Yeah,
already allocated this bucket of fund for this purpose, like for high risk investment, then in a way like you don't stress out, you don't panic, and
yeah,
then it's
yeah.
a
No, that's exactly
comfortable,
it. It's like
right?
you've got this bucket for high risk assets, and I do that, and I'm like, okay, this is the 0 or 10 fund. I have a 50%. I expect this to go to either 10 times or zero. That's it. This is like a binary decision, and that's why I was disappointed with myself with Zoom, because in my head I told myself Zoom was 0 or 10. It was a small proportion. I was ready for. I told myself I was ready to this for this to go to zero or to go to 10, but the minute I hit 0.3, when I hit 30% returns, I was like, oh, I gotta sell. I got jittery. I was like, I want to take these gains. So you really got
Mm,
to find an understanding for yourself. Another two things I learned, of course, dollar cost averaging, which is a great thing,
mm-hmm.
and never forget your emergency cash buffer, especially
Ah,
last year, right?
definitely,
Having that
definitely.
cash buffer can really reduce your anxiety. And I mentioned earlier, I get anxious about a lot of things. I'm a little bit of a paranoid person. So having that 6 to 12 month buffer of expenses, it's a bit more
Mm-hmm.
than I think normal recommendation by some licensed financial planners is 3 to 6 months. I
Mm-hmm.
got a bit extreme with it when six
Mm-hmm.
to 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this pandemic era that we're in.
I think there's no right or wrong. Like for some people, like 3 months can be good enough. Like for some people, like 12 months is just nice. There's really no right or wrong. Like you just need the buffer to make you feel comfortable, and you don't panic. You
Yeah,
don't worry about having no money for this and that. Basically,
correct.
that's when you can start to plan for longer plan and long term investments, and longer things that you want to do, whether it's career, your own business, or any sort of investments.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think your list just grew longer and longer. Like started from three, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it
I'm sorry
added
about
on.
that.
No, you don't have to say sorry. But yeah, but if it has to be like top three money lessons or advice that you can give your younger
Mm.
self. What would that be?
Oh, number one, emergency buffer fund. This is very easy. This one, because I kept telling myself this. Number one, emergency buffer fund. Get it done,
Mm,
because that will rule out a lot of anxiety. Because most of the
mm,
anxiety comes from the fact that you think about, what if my investment goes down and then I
mm,
need that money. But if you have your emergency buffer fund, you don't worry about that. So
mm,
you position it somewhere else. So emergency buffer fund, number one. Number two, purpose. Why am I investing? Because when you know why you're investing, you're not worried about a market correction. You're like, no, I'm investing for 30 years, 40 years. This is the retirement fund. I don't have to worry about this. Let's go max risk on this, and I'll wait 30, 40 years and we'll see how this plays out. I understand the market is this over the long run. That's two, understanding the purpose, because you don't want to go super risky with your healthcare fund, which you may need in 5 to 10 years, or your wedding fund, which you may need for like 3 to 5 years from now. That's so purpose, and then that of course goes into what and why and all of that. And number three is dollar cost averaging. Really super powerful because it's diversification over good assets if you pick the right. So I use well, EPF is automatic, but I use
mm,
Stashaway or Robo Advisor, and I look at the assets that they have. They've got the ETFs that I like. They've got KWEB. They've got the American funds. They've got this S&P 500. They've got gold as well. So you've got quality assets, diversified assets. You've got diversified over geography. You've got diversified over asset classes because they got some REITs as well there. And then, of course, diversified over time. Because I had a lump sum of money after the Apple investment, but I felt I was like, okay, I got lucky once with concentration risk. I'm not about to do it again. And valuations are at all-time highs perpetually now. So what can I do with that? dollar cost average over time. A little bit, take that money, break it up over the timeline, diversify over time, keep the rest of the money in a money market fund and let that earn some amount of money, but also let that buy you some comfort in terms of a cash buffer. Let me, anyway, this is what I'm telling myself in my head. I'm talking to my younger self, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I would tell my younger self. So it would be emergency buffer fund, protection, don't forget that. Two would be purpose. They have always understand why. And if you don't understand what you're investing in, don't do it. Three and is dollar cost averaging, diversifying over assets and time. Those are the three lessons I would give myself if I go back 10 years to 20-year-old me when I started putting money aside,
Very good advice. I believe young
or
Roshan
maybe
will
even 10-year-old
definitely.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that is good. Right. So, there's also this saying that like Malaysians are in denial of their financial reality.
Hmm.
That's why we get like young Malaysians. Some of them who are caught in like debts, credit card debts, or like mortgage loans that which they can't afford. Or
Oh, that's what you mean.
basically
Okay.
just yeah, basically it's just denying that they do actually have some issue with finances,
Hmm.
but they don't figure it out. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so I think it's very important to put a little bit of a caveat here, right? Because there are people who earn way too little to be able to save, or they're in a different economic climate, and I really don't have anything that can help them, right? And that's to do with the economy, wages are stagnated, and all of that. But from my experience, I've also seen people who are making high four figures, sometimes even low five figures, just blow their money on stupid things and rack up debt. How are you racking up debt if you're earning 6 to 10,000 ringgit? It's crazy because people have an unrealistic. It's the way they grew up. Maybe they didn't learn about financial literacy, which is why it's so important. When you have money, you should be putting it aside. You should be. I'm not saying don't spend money. I like buying nice things. I use Apple products and I get criticized for this all the time. But I like certain nice things. But I always buy it with an understanding of what I can afford. If I buy an iPhone, I know I'm doing it for 3 years because I've amortized it over that amount of time, right? I'm like, this is how much I can afford on a 3 to 4 year basis. What is the salvage value at the end? I don't think enough people ask ourselves these questions, but also because everyone works so hard for the money, when it comes to the spending part, they think, oh, I deserve this. Yes, you
Mm,
deserve to splurge if you work really, of course, but you must do it within reason and
mm,
understanding debt. I think a lot of us put ourselves on this trajectory that I need to have this and I need to do this. Oh no, I cannot have a Purdue. I need a Honda when I'm 31 because I have achieved this sort of thing. Why? Um, if you take a car loan, a bigger a car loan beyond what you can afford is one of the most ridiculous things you can do to yourself because you're paying and especially if you're not investing the money because you're paying the interest on the initial amount. It's not drawn down, and because it's an unsecured loan or whatever it is, I can't remember what the technical term is for that, as opposed to a mortgage, which is you pay the interest over time, the balance does fall on an annual basis. So that's getting to the nitty gritty. But there is a spending issue. I think people don't underestimate. It's the delayed gratification thing, and I hope I
mm,
don't sound like I'm coming from a high horse here because I'm also someone who's battled with it. It's
mm,
awareness. I think once you get aware about it and you start doing things like tracking. I know some people are on the tracking side, some people are not on the expense tracking side. I think doing it for 3 to 6 months to a year can be very helpful for you. Apply some data science in your life because once you see 6 to 12 months of expenditure and you put it in proportion to your income, then you'll start seeing like some kind of context. Like I spent 40% on food and drinks last month or
mm,
this year, and you're like, should I be spending that much money? How much did I save? Oh, I only saved 15%. Hmm, maybe I need to be tweaking that. And that's how I learned, right? Because I, without looking at my expenditure, I was like, oh, this is not realistic. I'm spending way too much money on certain things, on going out, on having drinks with my friends, on doing this and doing that. And I'm not saying live your life by the spreadsheet or by the app, but use that to inform your decisions. Because whether you what defines whether you can afford a 4 to 5,000 ringgit laptop? One, how long you're going to use the laptop for, right? So the way I think about it, let's not go laptop, it's a bit long. Let's say, and like when I make a decision for an iPhone, I
mm,
assume I can use the iPhone for 3 years.
mhm,
So if I take the, what is it now, like 3,600, 4,000 ringgit? Wow, that's a lot of money, man. So let's say I take the 3,600 ringgit for a mid-tier iPhone, whatever it is now, over 3 years. That's 1,200 ringgit a year. That's 100 ringgit a month. Can I afford to spend 100 ringgit a month of my salary on a phone? That's the question you have to ask yourself. That's when you know what affordability is, because you're not going to buy a phone once and then it's going to be done. You're probably going to refresh that phone between 3 to 5 years. So analyzing your user behavior is very important. It can help with your own expenditure needs and things like that. Um, and it's tough because you've got now buy now, pay later and credit cards and things like that. I'm a big proponent of using credit cards for everything because one, you're using free credit if you pay on time. Caveat, if you pay on time within a certain period, right? But if you're not, you must have the cash with you. But if you're not disciplined, then that's going to be a recipe for disaster. Um, yeah, this is all. I've listed a whole bunch of problems, and the solutions come to things like understanding your own psychology, right? If you're not disciplined, then use prepaid cards and cash in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Get someone to keep you accountable, like the same gym buddies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a whole income thing, but there's a whole financial lack of financial literacy and awareness as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I really love the part where you mentioned, like, sometimes put a bit of data science, like, behind your expenditure. I think that is very important because a lot of times when we ask, like, you ask someone, like, do you know how much do you spend on this? Like, let's say, like, eating out, or do you know how much do you spend on, like, certain entertainment, or, buying gadgets, But a lot of times, like, people cannot answer that is because they have not done enough tracking.
Mm,
Yeah, but you also did mention the point that it's not really not for everyone. Some people will find it like, oh, it's so tedious. Why do I have to do that? But to me, it comes like a habit. No, I do track my expenses. I enjoy doing that. Is because, like, from time to time I can easily answer, yes, I spend like 200 ringgit every month on average. I'm talking about average out of a year, like 12 months. You sum up
yeah,
this amount and then divide by 12, and then this number, like, no, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean like you have to force yourself not to spend and all these things, but at least you know what you spend on, and then you gotta ask yourself, like, is this what I value? For example, there are times when,
yes,
yeah, there
yes.
are
What
times
you
when you
value,
yeah, there are times when like, you just, after the analysis, you realize that, oh, I spent so much on this, but I don't even enjoy this. I can be just doing this
brilliant
because, like, I'm just doing this because my friends asked me to, or is something that my family loves, or like my friends, some, yeah, friends love to do. That's why I
value.
tag along.
Do you value what you spend your money on? And if you do, great. No one is standing on a high horse and saying you shouldn't spend money, but are you doing it responsibly and in line with the values that you believe in, right? Or that you enjoy? If you're someone who loves socializing and you spend 50% of your income on socializing and food and drinks and going out, hey, all the power to you. But are you saving and investing? Are you paying off your debts on time? Are you being responsible with it? Are you also calibrating for other things, right? These are, you cannot. The world doesn't live in silos, so you got to think about these kind of things. And of course, I'm going to again just disclaim again that I'm not like a financial planner, right? I'm just someone who's learned from my own mistakes time and time again. I've spent money on stupid things. There are still things that haunt me. I have a particular server thing I bought in 2010 for like 600 ringgit that I still don't use. It's a white elephant in my house, and it whenever I see it, it hurts me. It viscerally hurts me, but I keep it around to remind me not to be stupid. And that was something I made in a rush decision, right?
Mm,
Um, 600 ringgit of the span of time may not be the most disastrous thing, but what if I done that with something bigger? What if I done that with something even more expensive? Identifying these things and understanding yourself is going to be so important, and that's all. These are kind of things that helped me. And I'm not saying also that I'm perfect. I make plenty of mistakes till today, and there's so much more for me to learn still. um, but I think understanding what you value, Kat, as you put it, that's brilliant,
mm,
right? If you like a nice chair that you use, that's great. I bought a MacBook Air last year because I really just needed a device that I could move around. And yes, I wanted it to be a Mac, and the government gave us tax relief, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use it. And I love it. It's because my old computer's battery was dead, and it was such a big one. The value I've gotten, the ROI from being able to do work anywhere, carrying this around easily, and not always having to be tethered to a power supply has been very, very good. And I mean, I amortize it over like what, 5 years, maybe, hopefully, cross my fingers. Value, and just being responsible with your overall expenditure, right? I think it was Sethi who calls it conscious spending. So
Mm.
just being very conscious. Don't let yourself slip into an automated spending spree. Like you go to the mall, like, oh, Auntie Anne's, I go buy that. Oh, popcorn, I go and buy that. Oh, let's go to the grocery store and then just pick things down. No, go to the grocery store. If you go to the grocery store, have a list and make sure you just buy those things on the list, because the rest of it is just temptation.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And then I love it how you even put keep the what was that thing that you bought and then you leave it there as like self
It was like a
reminder.
wireless server or something like that. I thought I was some super tech fella lah back then, but apparently I was not.
All right. I mean, I think that is good, like as a good reminder, but I think that can be a bit hard on yourself as well. And then on the flip side, that would be like if you're actually spending on something, like you mentioned, like your MacBook Air, that you look at the value that it brings you. You probably like I mean, it allows you to work anywhere, and it probably brings you like like you make money out of it indirectly.
And it does bring me
Or
joy.
yeah, yeah. Actually, that is a more important point. Like, we should be spending on things that makes you happy, right? I think, like, I really do come across a lot of people that just spend and spend, every end of the month. Then they tell me that, oh, I don't have enough money for that thing. And then it seems to me that that is
Yeah.
the thing. For example, like time, like those are the things that they really value. But when
Mm,
they if when they start analyzing what they spend on, then you realize that all the money is not spent on things that they value, but instead is on
mhm.
the other thing that doesn't matter to them at all, right?
Which
And
is also quite painful, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it keeps us curious, right? Like, why do some people they just somehow they know they understand this, but there are just some people who is they have different point of view. They have like they value money differently, and I come to
Mm,
think about that. This is actually all this money perception. It actually comes from their personal experience, and it probably comes from when they were very very young, and they probably got the influence from the family or their very close friends, or yeah, people that they are close with. Can you actually recall like what was your first money experience?
yes, pocket money, school, primary
Mm,
school.
mm.
I started getting pocket money, and I knew I wanted to save it because I wanted to spend it on other things. You know, I was 8 years old, 9 years old, I think that thereabouts. I was getting maybe 50 cents. Was it 50 cents a day? 1 ringgit that time, maybe.
50 cents, I
And
think.
yeah, it was about right, I think.
That
This
that
was like
reveals our
1997,
age.
1998. Yeah, 7, 8 years old in primary school. At 8 years old, 9 years old, I was getting like, I think at 9 years old, I think I was getting 1 ringgit. And I would do this thing where on the way to school, I would take the 1 ringgit coin and hide it under the floor mat of the car. So I wouldn't even take the money to school because I wanted to save it. So this is kind of like the behavioral hacks. I was doing behavioral hacks at 8 years old and 9 years old.
Did
So I would
anybody
come home.
teach you this?
I For the life of me, I don't understand where this came from. I keep trying to figure it out. I think part of it was I've always had this inherent interest in money, always had it. I would listen to my dad and his friends talk about the economy and things like that at 6 years old. All these ex journals, no, at that time current journals, and all talk about this and like, oh Anwar, oh Mahathir, oh economic policy. And I'm just like, oh, very interesting, very interesting. But the money thing, I don't know. I think I used to see my mom do the budgets. She used to be sit at the dining table and do her books. I can't remember how old I was at that point. I remember when I was 9 years old, or was it 10? Or it might have been 11. She gave me an expense book to track the savings, a
Wow.
savings booklet to track. Um, but yeah, I because I remember, I think it came down to I wanted to spend money on other things, right?
Mm,
So I wanted to save that money to bring it together and be like, oh, I'm going to buy something else with that, right?
mm,
I also saw my dad. I think now that I'm thinking about it, my dad used to have this vase full of coins, and he used to just keep putting money in there. So I think maybe I may have been incepted by that as well.
mm,
But I really can't for the life of it. And people have been asking me this, and I cannot figure out like that from a young age. I used to try and figure out how to make money as well. When I was 10, I used to give massages to my family and charge them a certain amount of money, and I would give them a receipt. I would go and do like car wash. Oh, you want a family to come over? I can wash your car, 5 ringgit, something like that. The irony is I was not paying for any of the cost of goods because I was using my parents' car wash and money and things like that. But I've always enjoyed the economic part of it. In school, I think I was 9 or 10 years old when we were doing Kajian Tempatan or Kemarin Hidup. I can't remember. Must have been maybe 10. And we had this thing, entrepreneur part of the syllabus. And the teacher said, all right, guys, I want you to go and sell things. So I went to the Pasar Malam, bought mechanical pencils, and then went to the school and I put a margin on it and started selling it around. So I guess all of this kind of from a young age, there were always random things but they always felt like they synergized with my personality. I may be overthinking a lot of this as well, but that's kind of how I feel about it at this juncture.
Yeah, but I really do agree. Like from the way you describe it, it really did come from a very very young age, from seeing how our parents deal with money, and
Mm-hmm.
then like even it really from like how the parents like give us like pocket money. Yeah, I mean same thing. Like to me in primary school time, we barely even like we were not given much like a pocket money. Most of the time we were. I mean, my
But
mom
you
would
manage
pack
it, right?
us.
Yeah.
No, my mom will actually don't even give us pocket money because she thinks that, oh, I already packed you bread, like that is your lunch, what do you
Yeah.
need the money for?
I don't know how I got the pocket money. I suppose I conned my parents somehow, lah, but yeah. Or maybe it was the best lesson they ever taught me, resource management. Because I really believe in this. Like when I'm a parent, I will do pocket money from a young age because I believe being able to see how a kid manages money is really, really important. And then you can kind
Mm.
of guide them. Um, because what is more important than the ability to manage your resources, whether it's time or money, right? Um, yeah, sorry, kind of interrupted you there.
Oh, no problem. But like, I mean, I just wanted to share about like how like for myself, started from very young. Somehow for me, money relates to travel. Money, travel, and work hard,
Huh.
self development. Is because when I was young, I was just told that if I mean typical Asian parent, I was just told that if you study hard, like we give you money or bring you to travel, these are the reward that you get. So to me, it's really hardwired. I know I need to study hard. I need to improve myself. I get better, then I'll get money. I'll get to travel, and it keeps on like this. That's why I mean, it's really ingrained since a very young age that I know I need to work hard for money, but it's not really money because like with the money I get to go travel, and yeah, I really remember very clearly that I think at my UPSR I got like 7 A's. So my mom
Oh,
was saying that so yeah, for each A you get 100 ringgit. Back then, in comparison to the pocket money that I got, which is 50 cents, and sometimes I barely even get it. Sometimes I don't know, like yeah, I don't even get 50 cents. And
what is
compared to
that?
the
X.
700 ringgit, that was a big
Oh
money, and then
man.
I just saved that. That's how I learned. I think it's I gotta thank my parents for teaching me that it's not easy to get money, and then
Mm,
when you
yeah.
get it, it's very important to know how you want to spend it. And I learned that travel is important. I see different things, see the world, and that's how I would use my money. Basically, not on buying things, but actually to grow myself, to expose myself to the different things, whether it's learning new things, going to new places, meeting new people, learning new skills. I think, yeah. Does that does
Yeah.
does all this count as money psychology to you? Because yeah, of
I
course,
guess it
that's what.
would, I think it really would. And another story, actually, one of the things where I think I learned about money was I think I was with one of my uncles, and he asked to borrow 50 ringgit for, I think he didn't have cash on him at that point. So he borrowed the 50 bucks, and then when he gave it back to me, he gave me 51 ringgit. And I said, Uncle, you gave me 51. He said, no. You gave me wrong. I said, no, I didn't give you wrong. Because remember, money has a cost to it. When you lend money to someone else, this is what you call interest. And I was like, whoa. you know. And I
Wow.
think that someone taught me compound interest also from before, and I think that's where I started getting this idea for savings as well. Like,
Hmm.
oh, where can I put my money? Because even at like 12 years old, I was looking, oh, what's the interest at the bank? That sort of thing. Looking at the prices of stocks in the market, in the Malaysian market, opening a newspaper and looking at different prices. Um, yeah, I think that's where I kind of learned that as well. That there were many people around me who really just dropped little bits of knowledge, and I kind of just it always interested me, and so that's why I think I absorbed it, right? Because people are always dropping knowledge around you. You're just picking up things that are more in line with your interests, I guess. I'm not a psychologist. This is just, I guess, the hypothesis that I have in mind right now.
Hmm. So, what does money psychology means to you?
Money psychology is very simply just the way you think about money, right? And the way you think about money, and the way I think about money, and the way Sam thinks about money, or the way Joe thinks about money is going to be different, or it could be the similar depending on how you grew up, the things around you, the things you picked up, your genetic predisposition, I guess, as well. And for this, I've got to give a big shout out to Aaron Tang, aka Mr. Stingy, because he gave me this book. It's called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and it's a great read. I highly recommend this book because he really goes at lengths to explain the different situations that we all go through in terms of how we see the world, our money lenses. And I believe it's so important to be able to empathize with different people in terms of the way they come from. You cannot stand on a high horse and hit someone with a head and say you're doing money wrong because you need to be thinking about this. You're not going to solve the problem. If you want to deal, you can deal with the symptoms, but what is the root cause requires empathy and going understanding where a person comes from, and then you can help them, you can move them forward. Why are they insecure about money? Was that maybe they went through a time in their childhood where they didn't have money? Why are they careless with money? Maybe they've never had to work hard. That's not their fault, right? That's the way they were brought up. Or why do they prioritize money? Maybe when they grew up, parents replaced love with money. These are real situations that I think we've seen people go through, and understanding that is important. You don't have to excuse the behavior. That's my personal opinion, but you can empathize with it. And if your
Hmm.
desire is to help, empathizing first and then building upon that can be very, very powerful. I think, and yeah, that's really the psychology of money. Not everyone thinks about money the same way you do. So espousing and limiting the world view to your lens can be limiting and can be very patriarchal in a way, actually, if you think about it.
Hmm. Yep. So, and
Yeah,
why do you
a
think
bit
like
existential, but yeah.
no, no. I mean, I'm very interested with the book as well. Yeah, very interested in money psychology, and I'll definitely read that. And, but why do you think like money psychology is so important? And do you really think that with a right money psychology and the thought behind all this, it will actually improve a person's financial situation?
I think this is the seek to this is I'm going to throw a old school. This is one of my favorite books and one of the earliest books I've ever read. It's The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, right? And I think it's rule number 5 is seek first to understand and then only to be understood. I think that's where the understanding someone's psychology is really important. Understanding your own money psychology will give you an ability to then create awareness over your missteps or your strengths. Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? And then you can build habits around it to to support you, right? So this is where I'm going to shout out another book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, right? Also recommended by Mr. Stingy. And this was really a book that taught me about creating an environment that was synergistic with the goals or the attitudes and the values that you want. So if you're someone who wants to wake up early, the way I try to do that now is I have 2 alarm clocks. One's my phone, but also I bought a separate digital alarm clock and I put that in my closet or in my bathroom. And so when that goes off and it's irritating, I get up and I walk to the bathroom. And when I'm in the bathroom, I'm like, okay, the shower's right there. Just go to the shower. Like these are the kinds of little hacks or little environmental design that you can apply to your life. So essentially, that is how do you increase friction for the things you don't want to continue doing, and how do you decrease friction for the things that you want to do or the values that you want to show. And that can apply to money, right? So same thing, the DCA, the automated things, those are the kinds of things that apply. And that's where you've got to understand your psychology of money, where you're coming from, and then you can identify your weaknesses and your strengths and work around it. I think, yeah, I don't know whether I have any other thoughts on this, the psychology of money. I know it's important. Um,
Yeah. I think you got a very good point,
mm,
which is really sometimes, people tend to, they just get frustrated about another person's like spending habits or, money habits, but if you are really out of the intention to actually help someone to get better with their finances, well, it's better if you actually, empathize and then try to understand why is it that, be curious, be flexible, like, to really understand and ask questions and to really analyze why is this, like, why does this happen to this person, instead
mm,
of jump straight to you should be doing this, you should save your money,
yes.
you should start tracking your expenses. It doesn't work for everyone, I believe, right?
Yeah, they're great systems, right? And like tracking and all, like again, they work for some people, and no one is discrediting the merits of those ways and those methods and those measures. But soft power, communication, these are important things. Being able to get, if your desire is to help someone, then you've got to understand. But if your desire is just to tell the world, this is what I do, and you can follow me or not, hey, then all the power to you. Just continue doing that. But that's like, I think a little bit like the Dave Ramsey way of doing things. He has helped a lot of people that are in line with his values. So that is definitely a valuable way. It's a way that works. But these are for the people who maybe are left behind or don't feel understood. Then you've got to work a different way about it. It requires a softer touch, and yeah, and I guess that works for certain people, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I believe probably from your show, like the things that you've been doing, things that you've been sharing, probably have helped some people as well.
I hope so. I really do. It's a part of my job that really makes me happy and satisfies the work ethic and stuff like that. It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing, really. Ringgit and Cents has been. It is my baby, right? It's the one thing that always paranoid. Am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? Am I speaking to the right person? Is this enough? Is this too little? Am I connecting with people? Is this going to provide value to them? Um, because it's money is a really really personal thing, and that's why it's called personal finances, right? It's
Yep.
your personal finances. And I think the way I try to treat the show over the last 2 years is to become more personable and more relatable. So even if I understand a particular concept, I still
Mhm.
ask the person to explain it to me, to help me understand, because I don't want people to look at it and say, oh yeah, he can understand because who is he? Or he's a personal finance person, he understands. I never want that. I think if
Mhm.
people start think if you must be relatable, people must feel like they can relate to you. And that's what I've tried to make the show, a relatable personal finance show. And I hope that it has done that. Lah. I think that would make me feel really, really happy, if that was the case.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe you have definitely
A bit emo there, lah, but
inspired.
yeah.
No, but I think definitely we see the passion of you and then the intention. I mean, what you really believe in. I think people can feel it. All right.
I hope
So
so. Thanks, Kat.
yep, I guess that's almost the end of the show. So if there is one big audacious habit or goal that you want the audience to take action, what would that be?
It would be to take out a notebook right now and write down the purpose of your future, of your money goals. Write them down now, right? And then once you have your goals, what's the purpose? Why are you doing this? I want to accumulate 1 million ringgit. Why? What is it for? Because then only can you act upon it, right? And then once you've done that, how are you going to achieve it? Right? Goals are nothing but signposts. What really gets you there are the processes and the routines that you do on a daily basis. So this is where I would highly, 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 highly recommend anyone listening to this right now, with this in mind, to buy or borrow or read, however you can, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a very relatable book, very easy to read, and it really breaks this down. And I know some people are going to say that's common sense, and it may be, but it's been communicated very, very well. That would be the action I have today. It's one of my favorite books. And in fact, what I'll do later today as well on my Instagram stories is I will repost my post about the books that I have loved and my top books. So you can see the list there on my Instagram. I'll post it up after this.
Hmm. So I'm guessing that will be Money Psychology, Atomic Habits, and what's these two?
Um, Yeah, these two would be there, but there's also Unshakable by Tony Robbins. That was a book that really, really changed the way I think about money, in terms of the long term trajectory of it. That's a really good book as well. I Will Teach You to Be Rich is on the list as well. That's by Ramit Sethi. There's also Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. That's really good for your mental health and the perception of the world. So these are my top five books, really, in terms of what I've read so far. Yeah, so those would be them. I'll repost it later, but yes, you got two of them right for sure. Psychology, Money, and Atomic Habits. There, I think the way I would rank it is read Atomic Habits first, and then read Unshakable by Tony Robbins, and then read Psychology of Money, and then the rest of it you can kind of just mix and match.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing
It's
that
like a
with us.
syllabus, right? It's like this is the Roshan Class school. Yeah, this is the
Yeah,
syllabus.
yeah. This is the Academy of Personal Finance, or by Roshan. So module
Uh,
one, read this. Module two, read this. Module three, read this. But I think it kind of
oh, that's
works.
hilarious.
I think it kind of works. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing
Yeah,
that with us,
hopefully.
and also
So,
thank you
is
so
there
much
anything
for.
else there that I'm missing?
Mm,
No, it's all there. It's okay.
well, but there are always so many books to read. So
So many
many.
books.
Yeah.
There's also another book actually by a local licensed financial planner. Her name is Amelia Hong, and she wrote. Um, oh man, what is the name of the book? It's called In Outcome. From a Malaysian perspective, it's a great place to start because she tells you about EPF, she tells you about the Malaysian tax system, and it's a short book, simple read. And I think anyone who's a bit confused about their money systems, that will really help clarify a lot of things. So I would add that in the list as well.
Can I add one too?
Sure, come, let's pile on some books. Let's build the syllabus. Let's do it.
But let's not like make a list too long. But you were just talking about Malaysian context. But lately, I've just come across this book by Casey Lau, who is the
Oh
Smart
yeah,
Money. Yeah, be smart, be money smart. And yeah, I think it's very important to read about Malaysian context, like money tips.
yes.
And then I just love how he put everything, explain everything in such a relatable way with examples, like very simple examples that, like it doesn't give you any excuse to not take action actually. So that is a good book. I would
Have
I
you
would
read it
say that
already, Kat?
yes, I've read it.
I
I
have it.
would,
I haven't read it yet. I'll prioritize it today. Actually, and take a stab at it because I have a list of books, but I've been meaning to get to it. So let me pull that out today.
yeah. The things that he talks about in the book is they are simple, but like you say, like a lot of things can be
Actionable.
very. Yes. There are a lot of things that can be like common sense, but if it's really that common, why you're not practicing that? Sometimes I'll say that to
Correct.
people.
Sometimes it's
So
the way you
it needs to
communicate
be
something can be super important.
right. It needs to be relatable. It needs to be actionable, and then it has to really make sense. And then not try to communicate things and make it sounds like rocket science. And then we don't want a book that just read it and make it sounds like okay, I read it, finished the whole book, but there's nothing that I picked from there. So yeah, that's a good book. All right, thanks for all this sharing with us, all these
My
stories, all
pleasure.
these personal experiences. Good to have you on the show.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. This has been a lot of fun, Kat. I really enjoyed it. Also, if you liked all those resources, I would also slightly biased one here. Ringgit and Cents, the show that's all about personal finance. You can find it on the BFM app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think about the show. But yeah, that's the last resource I'm going to drop here. But Kat, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a lot of fun in this conversation, and I hope we've delivered someone of value to everyone listening and watching. And most importantly, again, I would like to reiterate: I'm not licensed financial planner. I'm just a personal finance nerd who's been making mistakes for 31 years now in terms of money and constantly learning. And I just hope that that there are lessons that can be learned from my own journey. Like that's really it. It's all from my own experiences and my own learnings and own stupidity as well sometimes.
But I think your stories are inspiring, and then like I'm pretty sure like audience they are appreciating this, and then yep. Thank you for the big audacious habit and goal as well. It was powerful. All
Yeah,
right, so hopefully we get to have you on the show again sometime again pretty
I
soon.
look forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you once again. Thank you so much for having me on. And for all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, everything, it's at Roshan Kanasan. Pretty much simple.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, podcasts, for listening. I hope you really enjoy learning from Roshan. Definitely a very knowledgeable person. Shared his personal experience, which I'm very grateful of. And then, if there's really one key takeaway for everyone, that would be you heard him. Take up a notebook and start writing the goals that you want to achieve, and then think about why is it that is important to you, and then build around atomic habits to make it a flowy process instead of forcing yourself into one big chunk of like mission impossible. All right, so as usual, you can find the show notes and links on our website mypf.my/podcast. I'll see you again in the next episode. Hasta pronto.